Once, when I was just 6 years old, my little sister's cries grated on my nerves until they became unbearable. Frustration consumed me, and in a moment of darkness, I ended her life and tossed her tiny body down the well. Curiosity led me to peer into the well the next day, only to find it empty, devoid of any trace of her. A strange occurrence, but it didn't faze me. As the years passed, a pattern emerged. At 12, a heated argument with my best friend ended in a fit of rage, and I threw his lifeless form into the well. Once again, the well held no secrets the following day. 18 brought an unwanted responsibility. Faced with impending fatherhood, I resorted to a gruesome act against my girlfriend, discarding her remains down the well. But as before, the well swallowed her presence, leaving no evidence behind. In my 24th year, an oppressive boss at the office pushed me to the edge. I succumbed to my anger, ending his life and disposing of him in the familiar well. Come the next day, the well was emptied once more. By the time I turned 30, my mother's illness burdened me. The responsibility overwhelmed, and in a moment of desperate cruelty, I took her life and threw her into the well. However, the well defied its pattern. Her body lingered, a chilling reminder of my past sins. Day after day, I revisited the well, bewildered by the one anomaly. My mother's body remained, stubbornly refusing to disappear like the others. The well, it seemed, held a dark secret that defied the twisted logic of my actions. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Why do you think the well behaved differently with the mother's body? Tap that follow button for more spooky tales. There's more creepy stuff coming your way soon. Ever been really mad at someone? Like, you'd do anything to get back at them? Well, there's this place called Lightless City. If you're up for it, here's what you do. Find a quiet alley in a decent-sized city at night. Close your eyes super tight and say, Lightless City. Focus on the dark behind your eyelids. You know when you close your eyes, you see fuzzy colors and shapes? Pay attention to those. After a bit, they'll get clearer. Don't freak out if they turn into weird stuff like violent scenes or messed up animals. Keep those eyes closed, no matter what. Time might slip away, but eventually, the pictures will stop and it'll be pitch black darkness. That's when you open your eyes. Boom. You're in a city with no lights, no stars, just tall buildings outlined in dark blue. Sneak out of the alley, move super quiet down the sidewalk. Any direction is fine. Your journey for payback starts in the Lightless City. If you hear anything moving, run fast away from the sound. There are animals in Lightless City. It's too dark to see them clearly, but they're big, like wild cats, and they'll kill anyone they catch. Keep going until you get to a place with smaller buildings, the city's edge. Eye. It hurts, but there's no blood. The kid will thank you and leave. Keep walking, and a tall man will show up. Whose light do you want taken away? Speak the name of the person you hate. As soon as you say it, that person will go blind, no going back. Are you satisfied with your hate? The man will ask. If yes, say it, and you'll wake up in the alley. If not, say no, and the man vanishes. Keep walking. You'll meet another eyeless kid. Will you share your light with me? Say yes, and your left eye will be ripped out, making you blind. Keep moving, and the tall man comes back. You'll have to rely on his voice. Whose life do you want darkness to take? Say the name of the person you hate, and they'll die. No more questions, no going back to the alley. Remember, make sure you really hate someone before doing this. You'll spend your life in Lightless City, blind, fueled only by your hate. For some, that's enough. Ever thought of sacrificing for revenge? What if a dark city held the key? Whose light would you take away, even if it cost your own eyes? Share your thoughts. Would you give up your sight for vengeance? Leave your comments and follow for more twisted tales. What dark journeys do you want to explore? James Nichols was a detective in mid-New Jersey. He lived with his wife and 2 kids and was usually a happy man, except for his trouble sleeping and sometimes walking in his sleep. He thought it was just part of being a detective. He heard stories about people having a hard time after tough cases, but he felt lucky that it didn't affect him much. One night, he tried a new sleep medicine the doctor gave him. He took one less pill than told because he didn't fully trust it. Surprisingly, he fell asleep fast and woke up feeling good in his own bed. This made his workday much better. No need for lots of coffee just to start working. On a special day, a 12-year-old girl was found dead in her room at 8:30 in the morning. The mom got worried when the girl didn't show up for breakfast. James went to the house, and even though his bag took up a lot of space in the small police car, he went inside. After saying sorry to the mom, he went upstairs. It was a sad job, but it paid well. In the girl's room, he saw something awful. Her throat was cut from one ear to the other. Jesus Christ. I told the CSI officials to search the room for any clues. While they did that, I asked the mom some questions. She was upset, which makes sense given what happened, but she answered my questions the best she could. Did anyone want to hurt her? Any enemies or someone trying to get to you through her? I asked. She said no. I asked a few more questions, ending with the one that usually doesn't help much. Is there any other information that might help with the investigation? She told me something important. The girl always wore a golden heart-shaped locket, even when she slept. But it was missing when her mom found her. This was a lead. The CSI people didn't find anything useful. On my last check of the house, I saw that the window to the room was opened from outside, and there were vines hanging from the sill. Now I had two things to find: the golden locket and stained clothes from climbing up those vines to the window. I worked for days, even weeks, doing my best to find the person who killed that young girl, but it led nowhere. No stained clothes, no golden locket. Maybe someone found it on the street, or maybe there were witnesses, but I couldn't find anyone who saw it or anything strange that night. Eventually, the case closed, and there were no new leads. The family got compensation for their loss, and I moved on to the next one, an armed robbery at a gas station near the highway. It seemed simple. I stopped taking my medication because of the murder. I'd been working all night on that case. Surprisingly, I cracked the armed robbery case in just a few hours, and the suspect got arrested on the same day. When I got home, planning to take the medicine to finally get some sleep, my kids were already in bed. Their bedtime was 8 o'clock, but I usually got home around 10:30. I couldn't find my comfy slippers by the bed, so I checked the closet. There they were, but I also saw some clothes on the closet floor. Damn it. Just a plain white t-shirt lay on the closet floor. I grabbed it, planning to fold it, already imagining how well I'd sleep with that medicine. The last time I took it was the night before that super exciting case. Maybe these pills brought good luck or something. While picking up the shirt, something dropped out. I noticed now that the shirt had grass stains. I searched the floor for what fell, finally finding it. It was a golden heart-shaped locket. Have you ever faced a challenging case like James Nichols did in solving the murder of the young girl? What strategies would you employ to track down a killer in a mysterious case? Share your thoughts, and if you crave more suspenseful tales, hit follow for more chilling stories. Let me share a story with you, if you have a minute. I can't say if it's true, but that's for you to decide. This story is about a lot of things, but mostly it's about holding on to hope. Miss Hazel lived in a little old house. It didn't have any screens on the windows. Every evening when the sun went down and it got chilly, she went to each window. She closed the wooden shutters and locked the front door. It wasn't just to keep out the cold, but also to keep away whatever might be hiding in the dark. Miss Hazel's husband passed away 30 years ago. Her kids had all grown up and moved to the city. She was too old and had sore joints, so she couldn't work anymore. She had to get by on the small pension check her husband left her. Even though Miss Hazel didn't have much money, she was proud and didn't like taking charity. She believed in her faith to get her through tough times. Now, her pension check was a week late, and the only food left in her pantry was a jar of stewed tomatoes. Things were really tough, and Miss Hazel needed something like a miracle. Miss Hazel had a lot of problems, and then there were stories about Railroad Bill. People said he was causing trouble again, and Miss Hazel had been scared of him for most of her life. The worry started when her neighbor, Miss Alice Cooper, claimed she saw him walking down the train tracks one Saturday night. They said Railroad Bill was the scariest man ever, and he didn't respect anyone. There were rumors that he killed someone just because he didn't like the way the person looked at him. Nobody knew for sure if he was a real person, or maybe even a ghost. The strange thing was, Railroad Bill always appeared when people were going through hard times. But nobody seemed to connect the dots, if you get what I mean. Miss Alice thought he was a big man from South Alabama who liked to rob trains for fun. She was proud that she had actually seen him. But most people didn't believe her much. They said if the police were after him, he'd leave the stolen stuff on a needy person's porch and then vanish. He left food cans, fresh veggies, and sometimes a bit of money. Poor Miss Hazel didn't know what to believe, but she didn't want to take any chances with Railroad Bill. So just in case, she put a chair in front of her door. After thanking the Lord for another day, she went to bed. Now, as Miss Hazel was almost drifting into sleep, she jumped awake at the sound of gunshots nearby. It seemed like someone had come running, taken a big leap, and landed right on her back porch. Following that, there was a rattling and a clatter. Opening the door just in time, she saw the biggest black man she had ever seen standing on her back porch. He grinned at her before running down the railroad tracks. Miss Hazel stood in the doorway with her mouth wide open. Miss Hazel's eyesight wasn't the best, but she swore she saw this man vanish right before her eyes. Could it be that she had just seen Railroad Bill? Looking at the scattered cans of food and fresh vegetables on her porch, she didn't know whether to be scared or relieved. As Miss Hazel went back to bed that night, she listened to the mournful sound of the train whistle disappearing into the Alabama night. She pondered Railroad Bill for a long time. Was it possible he robbed trains to help the poor? Maybe he had been poor too, and knew what it was like to go hungry. Miss Hazel was sure of one thing. Railroad Bill was an answer to her prayers. Early the next morning, Miss Alice visited Miss Hazel for their usual morning chat and to share newspaper clippings he found in an old trunk. The articles were over 40 years old and revealed that the police had captured the notorious bandit, Railroad Bill. It continued to say that Railroad Bill had been killed while trying to escape. One thing was certain: the Lord works in mysterious ways. It's not common for a young person to live in a nursing home. Usually, we think nursing homes are for old people who need lots of care because they're too weak or sick. Maybe their hip is broken and won't get better, or they have many illnesses. Some people might get better, but others end up in a nursing home as a last choice. But sometimes a child lives in a nursing home. This is the story of one such child and the memory she left. Amelia was not a very good little girl, according to her parents. She always argued with her mom and tried to hurt her baby brother. Even with medicine, they couldn't calm her down. Many times, someone got hurt. One day, Amelia ended up in a sick room at Riverwood. She had started a fire wanting to harm her family, but she got stuck in her room and almost got hurt herself. There wasn't a clear reason. She just felt like she had to do it. When they finally got her out of the fire, she had lost most of her hair. Some parts of her body were badly burned, almost down to the bone. She lost one eye, and the remaining skin was badly burned. She was only 10 years old. Her tiny face was really spooky. Apart from the missing eye, most of her hair was gone, and all the soft parts were burned off completely. No eyelids, no nose, no ears or lips. It was a small face with burned flesh and exposed raw muscle. The remaining eye was so damaged that it looked fixed and cloudy. It felt like it could see right through anyone who looked into it. The family, unable to care for her, brought her to Crestwood, telling the nurses to just let her die. They didn't care about the girl anymore or what happened to her. The mother was heard telling a staff member to smother the poor creature with a pillow and end her suffering. Some thought it was misguided sympathy, but I doubt it. Despite many arguments about what to do with the girl, she seemed to get a bit better. However, her appearance remained as shocking as when she first arrived. They didn't put bandages on her because they were afraid that changing or removing them might cause more harm. Her sick room had the smell of burnt flesh, and there was always that eye, looking at you without moving. She loved listening to music, so the nurses often left a radio playing in her room. Sometimes it was said that you could hear her singing along with it. They say it sounded more like a raspy wind than an actual voice. "Come and play with me," she'd say in her ghostly tone if anyone walked by her door or into her room. Some nurses couldn't get close to her. They couldn't handle it alone. Many nights they found the little girl in pain because she didn't have her medicine. On the night she disappeared, folks say her screams echoed through the whole floor. The nurse on duty that night left the building and never came back, shouting on her way out, "She was on fire, burning up in the bed, and it was a fire like no other. It only burned her, nothing else, just her." Then she vanished in the smoke. No ashes, no body, nothing. She was gone. No one ever figured out what happened to the girl, but nobody asked too many questions. Nobody seemed to care. Many tales go around that even though the girl's body vanished, some folks believe she's inside the walls of Crestwood, especially on those long, lonely nights when shadows creep just out of eyesight down the dimly lit halls. Some say they still hear her screaming, others have seen a ghostly fire in her old room, and some catch a glimpse of her out of the corners of their eyes in the hallway. But most often, her presence is felt when a small ball with stars on it rolls all by itself, out of nowhere down the hall. Then you hear a windy, raspy voice saying, "Come play with me." What do you think about the spooky story? Do you believe in strange happenings, or is it just a scary tale? Share your thoughts with us. If you liked it, follow us for more creepy stories. All towns, even tiny ones like Devine, Texas, have their own spooky tales and stories that send shivers down your spine. During my 5 years in Devine, I often heard about the Salt and Pepper Lady of the Devine Projects. Friends shared their strange and creepy encounters with this eerie specter. If you were raised in the Devine Projects, your parents wouldn't let you step outside after dark, not just because of the gangs and drugs, but mainly out of fear of the Salt and Pepper Lady. Like any low-income area, the Devine Projects had the usual issues: gangs, drugs, family problems, and unsettling individuals. While it wasn't the worst of all the projects, crime was still a part of daily life. The local police frequented the area for the expected reasons: raids, domestic violence calls, and sadly, the occasional murder. About 30 years back, there was a resident in the Devine Projects known simply as Isabella. She was an elderly woman, bitter, nasty, mentally unstable, and disturbed. Most of all, she was terribly lonely. No one could remember family or friends ever dropping by to see her, so everyone assumed she was all alone in the world. Isabella wasn't exactly the friendliest neighbor. She'd shout at kids playing near her window and front door, scaring them off with words about their parents burning in hell and being sinners. When the mood struck her, she'd stroll outside in the buff, and sometimes she'd approach young guys, making questionable offers. They usually scattered, avoiding her altogether. Another weird thing she did was knock on doors late at night, asking to borrow some salt and pepper. This was the creepiest part. She'd knock for what felt like forever, and most folks didn't open the door. But if they did, there she was with a spooky grin, showing her teeth, long, stringy gray hair, wrinkled skin, and big blue eyes. She looked like something out of a nightmare. The only way to get her to leave was to give her some salt and pepper. Strange, right? Over time, though, people in the Devine Projects got used to Isabella's bizarre behavior, as unsettling as it was. She became just another oddity in the neighborhood. As time passed, people noticed Isabella wasn't yelling at kids, parading nude, or knocking on doors late at night. When rent was due, she didn't pay on time like she usually did. One chilly January morning, the landlord went to her apartment to collect. With no response, he used his key to enter. Inside, he discovered Isabella in the bathtub, the water a deep red from her self-inflicted wrist wounds. The most unsettling sight was that she had also plucked out her own eyes. She had left a note on the bathroom counter. "I am sick of this world and all of the filth, lies, deceit, and sinners in it. This place needs to be punished. All I ever wanted here was a friend. You are all just too good to talk to me. You should all burn for it. I'm leaving this world to join my son Yora and husband Snow in the afterlife. First, there are some things I need to tend to beforehand. You're all scum and not fit to eat my shit. I'll be seeing you all soon. Tilda Risabella Osterberg." When the coroner removed Isabella, the people from the projects gathered outside. The overall mood that day was one of relief. "Ding dong, the witch is dead," sang bratty children throughout the projects over the next few days. About a week later, strange things started happening. People reported a woman knocking on their doors late at night, asking for salt and pepper. Some said they saw Isabella walking around nude in the complex during the early hours. A few even claimed to see her walking through apartments, just as she was when she passed away, her eye sockets empty where her big blue eyes once stared. Since the projects mostly housed poor, superstitious Mexican families, worry and fear grew, leading to a meeting. They all agreed to bring in a curandera, a Mexican folk healer who deals with the paranormal, to cleanse the housing projects and get rid of Isabella once and for all.